Good evening and welcome to the Tewksbury Board of Selectmen meeting of October 9th. The reason for this meeting, a few items on our agenda, and one is the town manager candidate interviews. Before we begin, I would like to thank Jay Kelly and the search committee, Erin Wortman, Yvette Story, Kenneth Lombardo, and Paul O'Keefe for their service to the town. I understand there were numerous candidates they had to interview and were able to get it down to 3. Your commitment to this community is greatly appreciated. I would also like to thank Mr. Petrin and Community Paradigm for their assistance to the search committee. Right now, we have 3 candidates, but 1 candidate has withdrawn. Mr. Kevin Hartuti in our 515 candidate has withdrawn. Apparently, he came to an agreement with the town of Topsfield. So with that being said, I just want to explain the process in which we're going to go through. Each candidate will have a 1-hour interview. And remember, the candidates are also interviewing us. We're not just interviewing them. I would like to limit the board's questions to 1, and if time permitting, we will go around again, giving the candidates 5 minutes to answer any questions. Let's not try to repeat the same questions. In the end, we have the opportunity, we can select, defer to our 10:15 meeting for a decision, request a second interview, or send it back to the search committee or back to the drawing board, I might say. With that being said, I'm going to turn the floor over to John. Mr. Petrin, can you introduce yourself for the record? And the floor is going to be yours, and you can explain how we got here.
Sure thing. Thank you, Mr. Chair. My name is John Petrin. I'm with Community Paradigm, and we were a firm, thank you, hired by the Select Board to assist and basically, with the process of you selecting the next town manager. So the first step was you appointing a screening committee per your charter, and I got to tell you, they were excellent. I enjoyed the interaction with the 5 members of the screening committee. That process went well. So we had worked with each of you. In the beginning, we worked with several department heads, with Mr. Montori and Mr. Sadwick of administration, and we put together the position statement. We advertised the position. We did a lot of outreach, in the recruiting side for that. So we did end up receiving 25 applications for the process. All 25 applications were presented to the screening committee. So they saw, every single application had the opportunity to discuss each person that was submitted. The screening committee made a decision to interview 7 candidates. And from there, per the charter, they recommended 3 for the select board to interview. We were all set until 3 o'clock this afternoon, so now you're at 2 candidates, which you'll be interviewing. So Ms. Axtell and Mr. Curran this evening, for the position of town manager. It was a good pool. The final 3 candidates all had different, styles to present to the board. So we'll have the 2 candidates at this point. So the process is in your hands at this point. I'm here to facilitate and to answer any questions you may have. Our first candidate is here, so I do want to thank Ms. Axtell for adjusting the schedule at the very last minute, because she was originally set for 7:15, and with the phone call, she made the arrangement to be here for 5:15, so we weren't sitting here for an hour, waiting at that point. So she is here when you're ready to move forward.
Okay, we do have it scheduled for 5:15. Board members, any questions for Mr. Petrin?
Yes, I have a question.
Go ahead.
I don't know if the chair's made a decision about recording the meetings or broadcasting them live, and if Mr. Petrin had a recommendation.
It's typically broadcasts live. In most communities. Some will once in a while just do record and show them after. Mm-hmm. First of all, in this case with 2 candidates, the second candidate's not going to have an opportunity to review, and I don't believe that's a factor. Anyways, in these things. When you do interviews in 2 evenings, I might recommend to say, broadcast record the first and go from there.
Sure.
But in this case, I think you're fine. With a live broadcast.
Okay. So I understand we're doing 5 questions?
What's that?
Is that we're doing 5 questions? Is that a,
We're going to do 5 questions, time permitting, we're going to go around again.
okay,
So if they're allowed 5 minutes to answer the questions, if it takes 2 minutes and we're done in a half an hour with the first round, we'll go a second round, a third round, so on and so forth.
okay.
You should have time to get into a third round typically
Yeah.
in most situations.
All right.
But again, if there's no other questions, I don't think, this is not a public hearing. I think we can actually take the candidate now if she's ready.
Yep, so she's here, and let me bring her in. So your first candidate, again, will be Kelly Axtell, currently serving as the Deputy Town Manager for the Town of Lexington.
Mr. Chair, we should do Pledge Allegiance. We should do the Pledge of Allegiance.
Oh, yeah, that's right. When she comes in, we'll do it. Nice to meet you.
Hi, Jim. Thank you for coming.
Nice to meet you.
Okay, before we begin, could we all please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all. Now, if you could introduce yourself for the record.
My name is Kelly Axtell.
Okay. I was going to go into introductions, but you just met everybody,
Sure.
so we don't have to do that.
Wonderful.
Please give us your opening statements and why you think you're a good fit for Tewksbury.
Sure. Thank you. I really appreciate this opportunity coming to see you this evening. And just to give my background a little bit, for the first half of my career, I was in the private sector. I had a whole career in the private sector doing independent living through home care, and I also was a property manager for a while. I did begin reflecting on working in a building versus all of those that were not in a building and had to live in their homes and get the same services that I provided in the institutional type setting. At that time, I was really thinking about my career and remembered I had done an internship at a senior center and loved every minute of it and had no concept that it was part of the municipal government. And so I started researching here in the state and figured out that it was part of the municipal world, and I was eventually hired in Lexington as the Senior Services Director. And that's when the municipal world opened up for me, and I started my plan towards coming to the town manager role. I was in a succession planning environment at the time, and so I went after every opportunity, and guess what? I fell in love with the work that is done. I had come from no knowledge whatsoever into this whole world of that there was actually a department that ran the streets that I had no idea about growing up in New England. After I started my process in the Human Services Department, I was able to go to a regional conference to learn about how the processes worked in municipal government, all the staff and the players that were brought in for decision making and that sort of thing. I came home from that regional conference and said to my boss, I'm jumping over your role. I no longer want to be the department head. I want to be the deputy or the assistant town manager at the time. We had heard that, we had known that there was a wave of retirement going on. And so the initial plan when I went to the regional conference was to come back in order to become a department head. No longer anymore. So I was able to capture that excitement and write a memo to to the then current town manager to tell him how excited I was to move up in the organization and work for him in a larger capacity. I was hinting at the time that I really wanted the job, and I got it. I was able to work under the guidance of two long-standing town managers, well-respected town managers in this area. They exposed me to budget development, which right now is the interim. I'm running all of the budget developments until the new town manager comes on. I do contract negotiations. I manage conflicts from every level of government staff, employees, residents, that sort of thing. And I manage half the senior management team. All of that to say, I am ready for this role. I'm excited for this role. I've been prepped for my 12 years, almost 13 years in municipal government to take this role on. And Tewksbury in particular, I apologize for this long-winded, I just am really excited to be here and tell a little bit about me. There's a couple of reasons that Tewksbury in particular is where I want to be, and not just anywhere. I haven't been training just for any role. Again, Tewksbury has New England values with an eye for the right economic development, knowing there's a character in Tewksbury that I'm, learning about and understanding that you don't want to hold the development back, but you don't want any sort of economic development. It really has to be the right fit, and I think that balance is executed by your plans and what is a contributing factor. Another piece is your strong financial policies and guidelines. A mark of a great community in my mind is its fiscal policies. The stableness of the finances. From what I can see, there has been a great management of finances in this town. Another thing is the professional staff that I, again, have done research on that works hard to execute the policies that you all vote for, town meeting votes for. They work hard together and independently in their departments to execute those policies that will guide the town in collaboration with the board here. And then one last thing is the trust and the support of the residents that I have seen is huge for a successful local government. And so I think that there's of course going to be conflicts or heated discussions, but when there's a respect and a trust between its residents and the staff and the board that run the town, it's a great place to work. So for all of those reasons, that's why I want to come to Tewksbury.
Okay, thank you for
Thank
that.
you.
I appreciate it, and thank you for your application. We've been going through this process only for a little over a month now. It was sad to see our town manager go.
Yes.
But with that being said, I'm going to turn it over to the board, and we might be going around a few times.
Okay.
Each board member will ask you questions. You have 5 minutes. You don't have to use the whole 5 minutes. Hopefully you won't use the whole 5 minutes.
Noted, yes.
And they're entitled to ask any question. We don't have a set of questions.
Okay.
Okay?
Sure.
So with that being said, I'm going to go to my right, Ms. Wellman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you very much, Ms. Axtell. I appreciate your application and following through this process. I know it's not easy.
Thank you.
And I am glad to see you here this evening. As you just commented, our current town manager has done an exceptional job with financial management, and I would probably say that it is top of mind, certainly for me as a select board member, to continue the financial management practices and excellence that we have achieved under his leadership.
Of course.
I'm interested to know more about your role in financial planning, in your past positions, as well as your strategies for ensuring organizational sustainability. What specifically have been your responsibilities in preparing the annual town budget, operating capital, enterprise funds, override requests, and so forth? And how would you describe your fiscal philosophy? I would also like to add that Tewksbury is a community that has never passed an operational override. That is an ethic that the boards have maintained over the years, and Mr. Mortori has, and our Finance Committee have performed to that standard. And we also know that we are entering deleterious financial waters if you've read the projections
Yes.
from Mr. Mortori. So if you could incorporate some of that into your response, I would appreciate it.
Sure, I
Thank
will.
you.
I took a couple notes, so I
It's a
will.
long- I know. I'm
It's,
like that.
it's a long,
I
so
know.
I will, if I ask for some clarification, please excuse me. So budget, again, I agree. I think budget is the heart of a community. You can't do anything without fiscal responsibilities. Just for mechanics, I have been I started out just participating in budget meetings just from the very beginning. In Human Services, I ran my own budget, developed my own budget. It was a smaller budget. Since I've been in the town manager's office, I have been an active participant alongside the town manager for every single department development meeting. In Lexington, just as an example, we have 1 to 3 budget meetings with each department head. That includes a separate meeting that for the operations of the department, for the capital of the department, and then any outstanding requests that we tend to go, which I believe in doing a level service budget, and then we call out improvement requests to the programs. So those are discussed in a separate manner, which I think, what you need for your general day-to-day operating expenses, and how are we going to enhance them all the time. Again, we have meetings with the finance director, with the town manager, and myself are the constants that are in every single one of those meetings. Pushing back, asking questions. I see you changed a number by a significant amount. What is it doing? Why do you need it? All of those questions, as the deputy town manager, I ask for. So I'm a full participant in guidance. I even give my opinion or feedback on something that maybe the town manager doesn't agree that they think this should go in the budget, but I believe it does. I share that opinion with everyone, and then we discuss it, and then ultimately at this portion, he makes the decision. If I was here, I would make that decision. But again, it's an interactive process. I have moved from a presenter to the town manager to the other side, where I am the one that people are presenting to. From there, I've also done I do budget presentations to the select board. We do a separate one. I actually usually have a management fellow that I oversee and help them learn about how budget is developed. So it's another layer of training to make sure that not only do I know how it works, I can share the knowledge with somebody else so that they can develop the budgets as they move through their careers. So for budgets, again, that's something I do right now as the interim town manager. I'm running all of those on my own. So we are, in Lexington, we hired for a new town manager as well. And during this interim period of about 5 to 6 weeks, I am running those operating budget meetings along with the finance director. So they have not stopped. They were not put on pause. They were put in my hands to make sure that the budget process still went forward while we are waiting for the new town manager. So in regards to I'd like to speak about just about the override question. If I jump around, I tried to take a few notes. I feel like overrides are in every budget discussion. I think talking about it and understanding what the triggers are from Tewksbury, you again said there's not been an override here. It's never let's do an override, it's going to be great. I think that having the fiscal policies that you have in place, the work that the current town manager has done, and the place that you are using stabilization funds, or looking at things that we can control now, like risk management right now, looking is there, these are just ideas, is there ways to look at raising deductibles in order to lower premiums? There's things that can be done so that override is not your first thought to have. I think that, again, understanding more in depth about what the community feels about nobody wants an override, but what's the appetite for it, but what are we doing and what can we do to mitigate that circumstance is really important. I don't know any communities that's not talking about the potential for an override, but there are, I think, working hard with the current town manager that has worked hard to get to this point and ongoing to keep not going towards an override. It's not a full answer, but I think we exhaust every single option that we have in order to not have to go down that road. I think that, looking even down to where can we tighten up budgets on the department level, I think looking at every angle adds up to one more year that we can avoid it, to one more year that we can avoid it, and make waves away from it. So we're not just avoiding it, we're not even having to talk about it anymore. So that's another thing. The fiscal philosophy, it sort of ties into that. I think, I'm coming from a town that is similar to the way that Tewksbury looks at their finances. So Lexington is a very stable community. And I mentioned Lexington, it's the only municipality that I've worked for, so that's the only one I can compare it to. Having clear fiscal policies and guidance that the board, the finance committee, the school committee are all on board with are very important. And understanding the revenue allocation model, how has it been working, understanding the allocation between the school and the town, putting all of that together, looking at the capital plans, what's coming down the line. You can't, planning for rainy days, all of those components are part of making sure that the town continues to run at its highest capacity. I think, we always have things that might come up, or things that we can't plan on. COVID, for example. COVID threw us for a huge loop that we're all still digging out from and still having ramifications from. But Tewksbury, Lexington, we're not sunk by COVID because of the preparation that was done previously, because of the way that the town's fiscal policies has been managed and continues to be managed. So I would put a very strong point on making sure that I am clear on the policies that are instituted here, that I'm clear on maybe things that you want me to look at. So that I'm not sure if I missed any of the other questions.
No, just as a brief follow-up, what's your philosophy on the usage of free cash when you're working on your operational budget?
So I am a proponent of not using it for one-time expenses.
There we go. Thank you.
End of period. Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Ryder.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Ms. Axel, thank you for joining us this evening and going through the process. In your opening statement, you touched on economic development. With what you know about Tewksbury, how would you describe its attitude towards maintaining its current character and moving into the future? And what would you suggest to make improvements on the approach to economic development?
Sure. So I think it's, again, the balance of character versus growth. It doesn't have to be a versus. It can be maintaining character and the right growth that helps keep the community moving forward and the services stable and growing for its residents, for the ever-changing residents. There's families moving in, there's the demographics are changing in a good way. When you have an influx of a different generation, it brings a different kind of perspective. It gives a different kind of life to the community that makes it evolve, which I think is really great. In balancing that, I'll give you a small example of how we did it in Lexington, and how I could move that idea and maybe talk about that idea here. We have a similar struggle in Lexington of the character of how the longstanding residents see the town and the newer residents or the residents that are looking for more in their community. And we had an exodus of small businesses that left during COVID, for example, and we needed some stimulus in our main streets. And one of the ideas we had was to have pop-up stores come in to the storefronts in Lexington, and by having small pop-up mom and pop shops come in, that maintained the character that the town was looking for, but it brought in revenue, it brought in new tourism and that sort of thing, which is really important to the town. So understanding the bottom line of what the residents, what the character is of the town and what type of economic development can help manage that is what, you know, I want to make sure I would dive in to those specifics. From what I can see, the headquarters of Demoulas and those types of things versus, I don't want to knock anybody's company, but looking at businesses or economic development, that would enhance the character of the community, not change it altogether, unless that's the direction that we got, that's what the community wanted to do. But I think that's not the message that I am getting.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Kretner.
Thank you for coming in, Ms. Axel. I really appreciate you spending the time and applying for the position. I got a question that's we're dealing with right now. The Commonwealth of Mass has required multifamily zoning for the 177 MBTA communities, which we're one of.
Right.
The state has offered little to no funding to deal with infrastructure or dealing with the additional traffic, and they're looking to put in 1,200 plus units that may be coming in front of us that they're looking to do. The residents are very concerned, and myself, about how we'd handle that traffic, the cost of dealing with that, such a project, and how we'd handle the change in the character of our community by having such a large influx all at one time, and especially in a designated area.
Yes.
How would you handle, this problem that we're facing?
Yes.
With the residents, strongly opposing it at a town meeting? I just want to know how, we're going to have the state mandate and what your thought on that is.
Sure. I think the residents were clear. I watched the town meeting, a little bit of it in the discussion, and the vote itself spoke about their thoughts on the MBTA communities. I think that we're in a position in general that we haven't had mandates like this come down without the funding in a long time, and there's no clear answer that I could give you that would say the Tewksbury should do this or that. I think that, I saw that Milton did their opening, the court case will start to go through. I think that will give a lot of clarity around towns such as Tewksbury that have a clear majority voting, clear resident voice that says they don't want it here, without some other funding, other guidance, other clarity around what it is that they're looking for. Right now, like any vote of town meeting, I think that it gives the signal that the town does not want to move forward with it. But if we are mandated by the state to move forward with it, and there's where Milton, if it goes through, I heard maybe as late as February, maybe earlier, that passes the deadline that Tewksbury has. I think at this moment, talking about what the options might be if the mandate comes down and Milton has to comply, even though their town meeting says no. That will be the clear answer, that Tewksbury will have to comply. But I don't think that anybody knows what that next step will be. Will there be a new deadline because there's now been a court case that goes through? I think there's so many variables that what I would recommend is that we don't take it off the table, that we keep talking about it, that we brainstorm ideas. If this happens, then what? If this doesn't happen, then what? To get everyone comfortable around the ideas that we may have to go in one way or another. I think right now Tewksbury is not the only community that didn't pass it. So there's something to contend with. But unfortunately, it's a very gray area. But my answer would be, we can't stick our heads in the sand and pretend like it's not happening. Because again, something is happening. We just are in the middle of that happening right now. So I would definitely, again, I'm not a proponent of sticking our heads in the sand. I believe that the knowledge that we can share, the information that the more that we talk about it in public, the more that we get feedback, the more that we educate the public about what the options truly are, then when we have to have decisions being made, those conversations can be achieved without starting from scratch of understanding the information. It's not a great answer.
No,
But
there's no.
I think we're in the middle of it, and we have to keep it in the forefront. We really do, because it's unfolding, and it's a new thing that everybody has to follow really closely, and again, talk about it out loud.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Mr. Mackey.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ma'am, thank you for being here tonight.
Thank you.
Congratulations on being a finalist.
Thank you.
So my question is going to be around kind of larger projects you've worked on. So Tewksbury has a significant amount of technical debt with our aging water infrastructure system. So what I'm interested in is, what large-scale projects have you worked on?
Sure.
What were the lessons learned from that, and what kind of insights, or how would you approach this potentially very large project that we have on the horizon?
Yes. So I've been involved in several projects from when I first started in Lexington. I was in a standalone senior center, and a building dropped into our laps to buy, and we converted it to a community center. And so that was a different project. That was more of a departmental understanding of merging several generations, but seniors and younger folks and middle-aged folks. So that I learned around the community engagement piece was huge for all of the projects. But that all we had to do was do a little bit of renovation and then move in. It's like, this is a piece of cake. We can do this. And then now I've gone through a fire station renovation, a police station, which was a huge project for us. And meaning we have a facilities director who ran the project. However, being the deputy, I was involved in the community engagement meetings. I was involved in the presentations to town meeting. I run all of town meeting in Lexington. We have representative town meeting, so it's the setup is a little bit different, but that is all under my jurisdiction. So I know more about what goes into planning for new renovated builds, new builds, than I ever thought I would know because of that town meeting relationship. The working with, we have a permanent building committee. We are now in the very beginnings of the largest high school going to be built in Massachusetts. I am I've been going, we have the school building committee that is working with the MSBA. I have been a part of those meetings since they began, learning, understanding, even how to work with the MSBA, which is a whole different animal. And I am officially on that committee until the new town manager starts as well. So again, meeting with architects, I've been in those meetings. We actually had a meeting, I was in a meeting, discussion, asking questions, clarifying, that stemmed the architects to come up with a slight different design that is now the leading design in the running for the new high school. And that came from listening to the recreation department, the recreation committee, the school, about the fields, about the educational program, and hearing all of their concerns and asking them, is there any, asking the architects, is there any way to turn it, or, I don't have the language, but, using my layman's language of, I know you have it this way, but if you turned it just slightly, they're now looking at not necessarily affecting 3 of the 6 fields that they're affecting with that one suggestion. So just being involved in those initial discussions, because that also helps when people call and ask questions about the project. I understand where it's coming from. I went over to learn, I supervise the fire department, for example, and I went over and did a couple of their exercises and got in their gear to understand why they needed a, my goodness, I'm forgetting the room that they, like a training room, because of, when you understand what the program needs are, it helps to communicate that to the community itself and to get, to be able to answer questions from a perspective of slight understanding. I'm not fighting fires, but I can understand what it's like to have the gear on and to be able to do it and have confidence that you can do it, and why they need certain things in. So again, I've been through the community center, and then we also had, next to the community center, we were able to buy a school. It's a preschool now, an integrated preschool. I went through that build, and that was a brand new build, and learning about the education program from that perspective and what the needs are for the community. So I've had ample experience for smaller projects, like just up and moving into a renovate, just a small piece of work of a building we bought, to the police station, to now I am actively on the high school project moving forward. So it's exciting, but the water, so that I would say is on that sort of level of those larger projects, longer term projects. The police station itself started, we started talking about it probably 10 to 12 years ago. We had to delay it because of the murders and the police issues that have been going on over the past few years. So there's been a lot of starts and stops in that project as well, and making those decisions. I was part of the decision to pause that, even in really talking through how much a pause would actually cause the community. So difficult conversations around financing a project that really needs to be done for the betterment of the community, and laying it out. I believe in honest conversations. I don't believe in glazing over things. I think I've seen it where people have tried to keep information and it backfires. That's not what we're here for. We're here to educate the community so that they can make the decision that is best for them, so that we can execute that.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Again, thank you for applying and being a candidate and a finalist. I have a question in regards to the finance. I'm not sure if Lexington has them or not, but Tewksbury has enterprise funds.
Yes.
Do you have any experience in dealing with enterprise funds? Because we have water, sewer,
Yes.
stormwater.
Yes.
And I think there's something else.
Cable television?
Yes. Yes, we do. We have a lot of enterprise funds, and I don't directly manage the enterprise funds. However, again, working through the budget cycle, working through town meeting and what, there's so many nuances to all the different funds that we have to work with. What can you use it for? What does it have to, what money do you have to make? So I'm not sure what your question is about it. Am I comfortable in that
Managing
environment?
the enterprise
Yes,
funds.
because again, the senior managers that I manage that manage those funds have to come to me to ask for if they need to use those funds, or what's, again, in the budget development stage or the budget management stage, if something is not going as planned, they cannot just move money around. They have to come and ask how to do it. Can we do it? Is this the right fund to do it from? Because some funds you can't take money out, you have to take them out from here. And so, yes, I am very familiar with that. We have all of those funds in Lexington.
Okay, thank you for
Yes.
your answer.
Thank you.
We're going to go around again, but this time we're going to go in reverse order, and I will go first.
Great.
Okay. In your past position in Lexington or as the assistant town manager, is there any decision that you regret that you made that you wish you could change?
Regret that I made. I don't think regret would be the word. I think that there are some decisions that are made. If you give me 1 minute, I'm trying to think of one that I could share. Let me, if I can tell you a little story that would exemplify what I think you're asking. I've been interim town manager one other time in the last transition, right when I first started. And I was in the role that I'm in now for about a year before the town manager retired, and the select board named me as interim. If dare I say, naively believed everybody would continue, or the senior management team would carry on as they had carried on with the previous town manager. He left one day, I started the next day, and I thought, no, I can just keep the ship going, everything's going to be great. So I didn't actively do anything to let them know my expectations, the senior management team. So from that decision of not actively laying out my expectations for the 3 months we were going to be interim, I was going to be interim, excuse me, within 2 weeks of me taking over and not saying anything, I started to get I started to see these cracks in the armor, in the sense of I started getting calls from the select board saying, did you know about this? You didn't tell us about this. And I thought, well, that's not how it works here. The department heads always report to the town manager, and then I share what the select board needs to know. And so I thought maybe this was a fluke thing. No, it continued to happen. And so I went around to the department heads, and that this was happening on a regular basis with, and said to them, what's going on here? Like, you're not, I'm getting calls that you're not telling me things that I need to know as the interim. And this is, I didn't think I had to tell you that. I'm Tate, I'm doing the job. It was a very eye-opening experience for me that what I had thought would just happen did not. And so I talked with each one of them, I laid out my expectations, and nothing changed. And so I then took it upon myself. We meet with our senior management team every 2 weeks, just to get everyone together, make sure we're all on the same page about what's going on. And I gave a speech, a no nonsense, this is my expectations from every single person on this team, that I was not going to allow people's behavior to impact what we had built in the town, and that I expected this, that, and the other thing. I laid out everything, and then I left the meeting because I said, I'm done with this behavior. The information that I got afterwards was that they all sat around and had a conversation about their own behavior and how they had let things go, and took ownership and responsibility of not taking the town seriously in these 3 months, and what the consequences could be if this went on. So after that meeting, everything went the other way. I had laid out my expectations, and I was able to start to rebuild the trust that I had lost in that from the select board. So, now when I took over the role this time, I made sure everyone understood what my expectations were. We have a different senior management team now, but so that there was no question of what I expected from the staff during this transition time. So it's, unfortunately that was a hard lesson for me, because I just thought everybody would do the right thing. And I was not clear. So yeah.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. Thank you for your honesty. So now we're going to go to my left.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So my question is, you've made multiple mentions of senior managers that you oversee and management fellows you oversee.
Yes.
This is kind of a two-parter. One, how many direct reports do you have? And then Tewksbury runs a very lean staff. So if you were selected, you'd be expected to be very hands-on with a lot of these activities.
Yeah.
And do you feel comfortable taking on a lot of those activities, such as managing the enterprise funds, taking point on the budget, without that staff?
Sure. So, yes, I know that's one of the big things. Right now, I have 13 direct reports. 6 are senior management staff, and then I also oversee the town clerk. And then we have topic areas in Lexington: sustainability, equity, and communications. All, again, it's a difference. We have sometimes more staff than that. I can't say that. We always have a ton of work to do, but those were areas that were important to the community, and the community indicated they wanted a staff person dedicated to that topic. So we executed on that topic. For me, my hand is in everything now. I don't believe in, I believe there's a balance. The expertise of the department heads, you cannot go without. I think surrounding yourself with experts in the field, professionals in the field, is what makes me the leader that I am. I don't run the DPW department. I don't run the fire services department, but I know enough depth to be able to speak to those. That being said, I have also built a network outside of Lexington, so that when I move to Tewksbury, I have those resources on hand. I was given advice when I first started this role from someone that I have high respect for, that said, make sure you build your own board of directors, your own personal board of directors, people that I can gut check myself with, people I can call and say, this is happening in my community. Have you heard about this? Am I way off base? That sort of thing. I have that board of directors. I also am an active participant in a variety of volunteer work that I enjoy, and have built a network of people I can call about subject matters that I might need a little bit more information on. And so that resource network is one that we all share. There's not something that I encounter anytime that another person in my network or that is connected to that network has not encountered some sort of similar type issue. It might not be the same issue, but a similar issue. Or can I have clarity on how the mechanics of this particular thing works? I am confident in that network to be able to function as a deeper hand in things and managing more things, because even though I have more people that work for me here in Lexington, I still need to understand what they're all doing, what they're all working on. You know, the sustainability director has 10 projects they're working on, and the board might ask me about project number 8, and I have to be able to talk to them about that in a clear manner. And what I may not know, I then know who to ask. And I think that's what I come to Tewksbury with, is that knowledge of none of us know everything about everything. We wouldn't need each other if we did. But knowing where to go when I have a question, knowing that I have trusted colleagues all over, that if I have a question, knowing that this board and the residents and the staff here are, from what are second to none. There's again, I'm not afraid to lean on my resources in order to fully understand how it needs to be executed. So I am actually excited about that. I'm used to, again, coming from human services. We didn't have people for that. We did everything from answering the phones to being out in emergency calls and everything in between. It's not new to me. It's just in the role that I'm in. The community has spoken for those specific topic areas.
Perfect, thank you. So
Thank
just
you.
one kind of quick clarification. So I'm a big fan of if you don't have the answer, you go get it. I love that. But are you comfortable, not relying on those resources day one coming in, taking point on the budget, enterprise funds, all those fiscal matters?
Oh,
Perfect.
yes.
Thank you very much.
Yes. It's only, I don't know if I've run into that before, but otherwise, I've been in this role for almost 8 years, and I've seen, again, I've been so fortunate that my 2 town managers did not see me as an employee level down. They moved me to the same level as they were as the town manager. So everything that they went through, I went through at the same, so that I would be ready to come in day one and say, yep, okay.
Perfect.
It might look a little different, the Excel spreadsheet versus a software program, but it's just that nuance of learning this way of doing it versus that way of doing it.
Thank you.
Thank
Mr.
you.
Chairman.
Thank you.
This will be a little easier on you. Experience working with state delegation and state agencies.
Yes.
We're going to need funding to do multiple projects, and
Yes.
working with those agencies to get the resources that we need for our community. Can you
Yes.
talk about your experience and what you've done in the past and how you would help Tewksbury in the future?
Yes. So I think so I'm actively doing that right now. We're celebrating the 250th in Lexington. And so the state delegation, we're always working with them about how much funding we can get for that, for this, that, or the other thing. I think part of that is getting to know the delegation and understanding their relationship with Tewksbury. Each of our delegation in Lexington has different issues they want to surround themselves with, issues that they want to push forward. And I think understanding what those, not issues, that's not the right word, different things they want to champion, and understanding, who best to partner with, if not all of them at the same time. I have, gotten to know some of the different delegations with the 250th. I never would have been involved with the economic development. I've met, so that's been an exciting piece. The my current town manager was involved very heavily with some activities that took him away from the office quite a bit during his tenure. And so a lot of that Friday morning, Friday afternoon discussions with the delegation fell to me, talking back and forth with staff and, getting things done, because during the time that he was away and coming back, decisions had to be made. Information had to be shared to make sure that they could then go and ask for the funding that we were going through. So it's a different discussion point than the select board that I've been involved with. The select board or other boards and committees, we usually have more information. It's not, I need it in a half hour and this is what you need to get me. It's a different conversation. It comes at you very fast, but I'm comfortable with that because, again, I've been doing it already, and we'll continue to do it as the interim, and especially as we're ramping up around the 250th. I am also, I've worked a little bit with the Hanscom area too, Hanscom Air Force Base, because they're within ours. So I have a comfort level with working with all levels of the government, depending on what we're looking for. I feel like I'm missing a piece of your question.
Yeah, I was going to let you finish. I mean, you answered one part. It's just
Yes.
working with the state agencies as well. A lot of government, we work with our delegation,
Yeah.
but then we independently work with a lot of state agencies. Like,
Sure.
Route 38 is a state road, and we have the schools and the
Yes.
education department and other things. Have you worked with any of, directly with any of state agencies as well? If they come through, like if we were building a school, we're doing those type of things. If you could touch on any of those, working directly with the
Sure.
agencies as well.
Excuse me, I apologize, I
No
missed
problem.
that part of the question. So with the schools right now, actively working with the MSBA. That's one that I'm, again, on the committee, so I'm not one person. But I've worked with them with I get a lot of information from the schools secondhand through the superintendent. So my direct discussions with the school area, it's not so direct, it's more of an indirect. I have a really good relationship. One of the, I think, key relationships is that with the superintendent, to understand what's going on, with what's coming down from the state, what mandates and that sort of thing. And then the financial, like the DOR or the DLS, excuse me, we do have a specific finance director that deals with them directly. However, when I need to step in, or when I've needed to step in or answer questions about being the town manager or the interim town manager, to answer questions that have to come from the town manager, I have stepped in to do that. Or if we have financial meetings with the states, with the state agency, I'm present at those meetings, hearing the information. Again, because the setup is that we have a finance director that does the majority of that work. They tend to speak on all of our behalfs, but I've been in it. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I appreciate it.
Yes.
Thank you. Your relationship with the select board.
Yes.
How would you approach managing the culture in Tewksbury and properly align with the roles of the town manager as well as the select board? And the second part, how would you define a successful relationship between the board and the town manager?
That was one of my questions, if I had time at the end, was how you would define that. Can you repeat the first part,
Sure.
please?
How would you approach managing the culture in Tewksbury to properly align with the role of the town manager and the select board?
Okay. So coming into a community, not moving up through a community. I think that's one of the most important things to do first, is learning the culture of the community. And in order to do that, it's not sitting in my office all day meeting with staff only. I think that part of understanding how the community ticks is to get the perspective of the select board, which I think, having one-on-one meetings, understanding where decisions are coming from, how you come to make your decisions, what information the board needs in order to make educated decisions for the select board. But taking that a step back, I believe in getting out in the community to fully understand it. Sitting with you in a formal meeting is different from sitting with you in a coffee shop or at an event that is a community event where we can just chat and I can get to know the community, not because you have an issue to bring to me, but because I'm trying to get to know the feel and the culture of the community. I believe in going out to maybe having the police or maybe having somebody take me around around the community to learn what are the hot spots, where's the recreation, where's the how's the town made up? And again, people can tell me, they can give me a list, they can meet with me in a formal setting, but getting out of the office, I think I've said that 3 times, is important to understand. Going where people are, where the townspeople are, because I don't want to be I don't want to be the town manager of a town that I know nothing about except for what comes forth in formal settings. I think under that's how I've worked my way in Lexington. That's how I've understood where people are coming from both sides of the road. We have many different cultures in Lexington, and sometimes the communication lines can get crossed because people are not understanding why someone might be saying this, that, or the other thing, because they don't know what the culture is. And it's a lot of work to do that, but I think that's part of the investment that I believe is crucial to being successful in this role, is to get to know, because there's logistics of the job, there's finances, there's plowing the roads in the winter. There's things that have to be done. But to understand the direction that the community wants to go in, that maybe some institutional knowledge that I would not have, that I will be seeking so that I can be better informed on when I have to make decisions for the community. And then the other question was around how do I see a successful
Yes, how would you
board.
Define a successful relationship between the town manager and individual select board members and the board as a whole?
Yeah, so I want to be clear that I think that laying expectations helps build the foundation on both sides of a successful relationship. Understanding what the board needs from the town manager, down to, do you want daily texts about day-to-day operations? That's a bad example. But how the board, each individually and collectively, likes to be communicated with. I've worked with people that like text only. I've worked with people that want a phone call, email at the end of the week with all of the updates. Understanding how the board wants its information, and because at the end of the day, we're working together in a collaborative manner to move the town forward. I think that, I would like to have expectations on what the board will or will not get involved in. Is there a clear line between operations and policy? Understanding the workings of how your board operates will help define that success. But I think that the foundation is laying out where those expectations lie. And sometimes they can be a little vague at the beginning, but again, having that open communication, I don't believe in only meeting once a week because that's the time that we have on the calendar. Developing a relationship where you could call me because you heard something on the street and you had no answer for it. And you pick up the phone or however you want to get your information, and I'm right there saying, yes, this is what's going on. I just, or whatever it is. But that takes time of building the trust in the relationship, but understanding what level of detail information do you need in order to operate successfully as a board, and that having open conversations around that back and forth and understanding, again, I understand how my current board needs their information. I understand how they operate individually and as a collective, but that took time to understand, and that took, and I believe that's an investment on your part to get to know me and how I operate and understand how we can meld those together to be successful. So again, I believe in a very collaborative. You can't, I think when you have that friction, you can have just disagreement, but when you have a friction of non-trust or non-respect, that can show through. And I really would want to work hard to make sure we have that understanding of what each of our expectations are for the good of the community.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Ms. Willman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you very much. This is my second question. So in some communities, there's a big divide between the school side and the town side. We all know this in municipal management. Once upon a time, I was on the school committee. So I feel that personally. Can you talk a little bit about your experience with the school department, how you may have supported the mission of the school committee, and if you've played any role, for example, in the negotiations with teachers' unions?
Sure. So first and foremost, we have a seat at the table with the negotiations, but we have not enacted that seat. So no, I have not been involved. We, again, because, which I question that separation. I think it's not necessarily because I understand the full education program, but I think understanding the negotiations of teachers versus negotiation of the municipal staff. I think having that understanding of where they're coming from is just helpful to know. But again, we chose not to have that seat, even though it was offered. I do believe I've functioned in, I believe that relationship, again, is one of the, is a very important relationship between the school and the town. The school, in my experience, always has the larger portion of the budget. And so, I think I mentioned at the beginning, understanding how the revenue is allocated here would be helpful to understand how that relationship is. And again, we had a changeover of superintendents, and we made it, and I believe in this, made sure that we were part of the orientation, we're part of ongoing meetings, so that there's not a separation, a deep separation of what the school does and what the town does, what the municipal side does. I've always operated under the premise of it's one town. It's not, we have this side and this side. I think having the mentality first of a complete picture, and again, taking the time to understand the educational program, the challenges that the town is facing, and sort of what the increases mean. You know, I know that there's a formula of how much money comes from the state and all of that, but really understand what the programmatic needs are for the school and understanding how it's been looked at, because my experience is in the municipal side of things. I fully understand that. The school side is a little bit more murky because, again, I'm not in it all the time. So really understanding that, but making the effort to get to know and even seeing how some of the schools operate, I think gives me a picture for working with the whole town.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, this is exactly 1 hour.
Perfect. Whoosh. Yes.
I want to thank you again, for your honesty and your interest in Tewksbury. I will go around one more time because we have a couple minutes. Does anyone have any final questions?
I do have one last question that I wanted to see if I could get in.
Go ahead.
Apologize to jump in there, but we have, the town manager is leaving.
Yes.
We have an assistant town manager that is expecting to be leaving shortly as well.
Yes.
Seeing that you worked in another municipality and like that, what would you, if we were looking for an assistant town manager very shortly, how would you go on about like searching for that, and where would you, and what qualities would you be looking for somebody to be working with you if you got this position?
So, short answer.
Yeah.
I'm going to look at what we currently have, what the skills and what the expertise are in the current assistant that is leaving, that's going to leave a hole. Is there anybody else on the staff that's going to rise up and take that, take those, not necessarily the duties, but the expertise on? Really looking at what are my strengths and what am I looking to supplement in my assistant. So I think that whenever somebody leaves, it's a chance to assess what you have as strength and what you really need to bring someone in with. So that's where I would start out with. And then again, I have some assistants I'd love to work with, but I really, they all have different skill sets. So I'd encourage people to apply. But when we go out to hire somebody, I'm going to send it to everybody that I know, because I want to get the best pool of candidates that will come and complement the already amazing staff that is here.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes.
All right. Again, thank you.
Thank you.
I'm not sure we're going to make a decision tonight, but we do have a meeting next Tuesday. I'm sure John will keep you informed.
Thank you.
Of where we stand. And again, I really want to thank you for your interest in Tewksbury.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Have a good evening.
Thank you. You too.
Thank you
I
again.
appreciate your time. Again, nice to meet all. Thank you.
Thank you. Pleasure.
Thank you again for coming in.
Okay, does anybody need a break?
Yep, I sure do.
We're going
That was
to
unanimous.
recess for 2 minutes. Good. Thank you and welcome back. We're in the process of our second interview. Mr. John Curran, if you can introduce yourself for the record so our recording secretary can record it.
John Curran.
Okay. What we had planned for each individual, it's a 1-hour interview for each person. And we go around the table, we'll ask questions. You have 5 minutes to answer. Sometimes it might take a little bit longer, but try not to use the whole 5 minutes or we'll be here till
Yeah, okay.
midnight. So with that being said, I want to start out, and can you please give us your opening statements and why do you think Tewksbury is a good fit for you?
Okay, thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to meet with you and talk about the possibility of working here in Tewksbury. One of the reasons I think that Tewksbury would be a great fit for me and for the town is that, well, let me just tell you a little bit about myself, just so you know where I come from. I'm not going to go through my resume, but you know, I've been in the business for a long time, and I have 2 young kids, 10 and 13, and I think that pragmatically I'm going to be working for a long time because they're going to be going to college in 5 to 8 years. But passionately, you know, I want to be in the business for a good period of time because I enjoy the work. As you all know, because some of you all have connections to local government, not just in your role as select board members, but in your other capacities as well. It can be a thankless job, it can be a difficult job, it can be a stressful job, but it also is very rewarding when you are able to impact people's lives and carry out the vision of the community and help a community get to a place they want to get to. And I get a lot out of that, and you constantly have to reinvent yourself to do that and come up with new ways of doing local government. And so even though I've been in the business for a long time, I get a lot of joy out of new things, trying new things. So that's a little bit about me personally and how I come into this role. Why Tewksbury? A couple of reasons. One is that I think it would be a very seamless transition for me to step into the role of Tewksbury because obviously I'm next door. I've been in Merrimack Valley. I'm a known entity in Merrimack Valley. I've been participating in the Greater Lowell Chamber of Commerce. I'm a founding member of Middlesex 3. So many of the organizations that Tewksbury is already affiliated with, I've been working with. The budget process that happens in Tewksbury is similar to the process in Billerica because the budget documents that Richard used, he took with him from Billerica. So when I was going through your budget, I said, wow, this is exactly the same format. I mean, I've made some changes and Richard's made some changes, but I would bring those together and enhance the whole process with what I brought to the table and what Richard brought to the table. But it would be an incredibly seamless transition from a budget perspective because it literally is the same budget process that I've been using for 14 years. Then the other things that the DPW process, the DPW project that you're working on, the same project team that you have, it's the same project team that I was using in Billerica. The OPM, the designer are all the same, so I'd be stepping into that role working with the same team of people that you're working with now. So there are a lot of things that I think that would make it a seamless transition, but beyond it being the fact that it would bring so many familiar things to the table and the transition would be easy, why would I want to come to a community like Tewksbury? 2 things that excite me about Tewksbury. One is that you've made a tremendous investment in infrastructure over the last 14 years. $100 million in sewer work. You built the central school, the new high school, and tons of road work has gone on in the community. So you are a community that wants to invest in yourselves. And I think that's very important. A lot of communities don't do that. They just, they're reactionary. Tewksbury is not that way. I'd like to be a part of that equation because that's the way I like to do things as well, is to try to, try to be proactive and address the needs of the community and try to fix things before they become big problems. Another thing about Tewksbury that I like from going through your meetings and some of the documents that I read online is that nobody likes change. Change is difficult for everyone. But I find that Tewksbury at least understands and recognizes the need to address change and treat it as an opportunity to try to impose your will on that change rather than ignore it and get steamrolled by it. An example of that would be Envision Tewksbury 2037. You look through that document, you clearly recognize the changes that are coming down the pipe in that document and are trying to plan ahead for that. So for those two reasons, I think it would be a great fit because I like to work in a community that wants to have a vision for the future and move forward. So I think that would be similar to the way my philosophy is, as well as a seamless transition from all of the stuff I could bring to the table because I've worked next door for 14 years.
All right, thank you for that. This time we're going to start off on this side of the table. We'll go with Mr. Mackey.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Curran, good to see you. So I was glad to hear you mention investment in infrastructure in your opening statement. Well, we've done a lot of investment in infrastructure. We've got a significant amount of technical debt for our water infrastructure. So that being a large project that's on the horizon for us, I want to understand some of the larger projects you've been involved with throughout your career, lessons learned, and then what your approach would be for dealing with replacing nearly half the water conduit in Tewksbury.
So we're going through a similar exercise in Billerica, both in water and sewer. Sewer was actually a bigger expense. But in terms of, you are asking me about the debt that you would face looking at these long-term projects. Now, you have $100 million in debt that you probably took on with the work that was done for the sewer over the years that Richard obviously managed and orchestrated. And we've done similar things in Billerica. And what I've done is, you look at those numbers, and for Billerica, the sewer was $240 million. That's a very hard number for the constituency to swallow. And then you've got water, a capital improvement plan for water. In Billerica, it was $50 million in 5 years. What I like to do is, you have to create a narrative about what that is. What does that mean to the taxpayer? And the way I go about that is that you don't hit them with the $240 million number. You hit them with a number that will impact their taxes on an annual basis. So what does that mean to the average taxpayer over time? So what I would do is, you take the debt schedules for the town. You have existing debt that you already have, which is in your debt schedule. And then you have projected debt, which is the debt that you project for all of the work in the water system that you want to do. So you create the schedule that shows the projected debt in the existing debt, and then from there, you include cost escalation. It's going to be 3% a year for out ad infinitum for 10 to 20 years. You include all those things, and that allows you to create a tool that you can predict what the expense is going to be to the community. You create debt schedules and what the debt service is going to be for the community for those years. And then with that, you can break down what the tax impact would be to the community with that debt. So then you're taking those big numbers and you're saying, well, that would cost the average taxpayer, this isn't a number for any, it's just as an example. I'm doing it in Woburn on a committee that I'm on for the school building project. So there's a $130 million, a $212 million school, a $110 million school, and for the average taxpayer, it was $650 annually, moving out for 20 years. So then what I did was I created a debt stabilization schedule. So basically taking money that you know you're going to have for free cash and allotting a certain amount of money towards debt stabilization for those for a number of years, 20 years, that's what the debt usually is, and taking that amount and putting it against the levy to buffer and soften the impact on the tax rate. And then you can say with certainty that the impact is going to be, you know, in Woburn it was 400. When I did the high school in Billerica, we got the high school and the Parker School, which was $200 million investment, cost the average taxpayer no more than $200 a year, based on the debt schedule that was put forward. That's been in place for over, I would say about 10 years, and it has proven itself to work. And I've used that debt schedule to buffer the tax rate each year. And if you look at Billerica's tax rate, it's very competitive, even though we pump so much money into assets. So you can do that, and you can tell a manageable story, and you can give these tools to town meeting and to the board, and you can say, you can quantify it in a way that people can digest it, rather than giving it to them in such a big number that they're never going to get over it. And people say, well, what about the operating expenses? Well, that's a different kettle of fish. You have to talk about debt stabilization and all your capital needs and put them all together in one cauldron and figure out what the cost is going to be, and then try to quantify it in a way that people can make educated decisions at town meeting and other places and decide whether that's a worthwhile investment for the community. So I've been through it a number of times, and the 4 communities, the 3 communities that I've been in, and each time it's worked out very well. I did it with Woburn High School, I did it with Billerica High School, and I'm actually doing it I'm on the building committee in Woburn doing it as well. So it can be done, and it's just trying to bring it down to numbers that people can digest and telling a story that people can understand in a manner that isn't too complicated, so that they can make those educated decisions they need to make at town meeting and that you need to make. And that you know, I was also an elected official, so I understand that there's a huge risk involved when you're saying, oh, we're going to do all this. That's great. They all want the services, but nobody likes the tax bill when it comes in. So you gotta hit them over the head with the, sorry about the graphic phrase, but with the number, like Robert Kennedy always said, hang a lantern on your troubles, right? So what do they want to know? They want to know what it's going to cost. Figure it out. Put it online. We had a tax calculator so that people could plug in their assessed value of their home, and it would tell them exactly what the impact would be on their home. So I hope that answers your question.
It does. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Mr. Kravitz?
Welcome, Mr. Curran. Just for the record, the residents like that kind of talk.
Yeah, what?
The residents like that kind of talk, that straightforward kind of
Oh, okay, good.
communication. They want to hear that up front, so the whack them over the head is a perfect example of trying to get some things done in this community. They appreciate it, trust me. The Commonwealth of Mass has required multi-family zoning requirements for the 177 MBTA communities, which we fall into. And while there's a need for housing in all the communities, the residents, to handle 1,200 plus units in one location has been very difficult for the residents to digest, especially changing the character of our community and worrying about the infrastructure and the traffic that this would bring forward. The residents voted it down overwhelmingly, but the state is still pushing mandates toward us. How would you handle that? Because that's something that would be coming in front of us.
So I understand that you, as a community, similar to some other communities, waiting for the Milton case, which has been moving along in the last few days, see what the outcome of that is. And I know that there was a plan presented by the planning board, and everything's sort of on hold. Now, it would be a little premature or presumptuous of me to suggest what I think you should do at this point, because I don't know all the details and what the desires are of the community. I'm familiar with, that there was a lot of resistance to that A lot of it has to do with, I think, education, educating people on the need. There is a need for housing. There's absolutely a need. Is there a better way to do that? A lot of people believe that the state's solution is kind of like a sledgehammer, and that it doesn't fit all communities. And maybe by waiting out the Milton decision, that some changes will come up that will allow communities to move in a manner that better suits their community. It's tough to have zoning circumvented, like 40B used to be by state mandate. So that's not always an easy pill to swallow. But what I would do is, first of all, you're asking me the question, what would I do? Is I would have to get up to speed with the planning department and find out exactly where everything is and what opportunities there may or may not be, and try to bring that to the board, to the select board, and at least give you an update if there's anything that I think could be done differently, or a track that you should be on that would help you mitigate this challenge of housing. I think, like I said in my earlier statement, change is hard, but there is, and I know you have housing developments that are being done right now anyway. So I think we have to see if there are ways that we can modify that, and hopefully the state will be open to that as things progress. But we have to do something that the community is going to be comfortable with, and that is going to involve it's going to involve obviously public input, public education, and I know the select board is not going to want to make a decision until they feel like these things are all properly vetted. So it's a difficult process. That's a difficult question. But I think the answer is, through transparency and information, hopefully you can come to a solution that might address that. Hopefully not under the parameters that have been established to date. Hopefully they're changed. But we'll just have to see. But I think the biggest thing about that is trying to get as much information to the board, your board, and the planning board, and then ultimately to the public, so that you can make the best decisions you can for the community.
Thank you.
Mr. Ed.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Curran, thank you for your time this evening and your time through this process. And congratulations on making to the finalist. Economic development. With what you know about Tewksbury, how would you describe its attitude towards maintaining its current character, and what the future will bring, and any suggestions you would make to improve on the approach to economic development in the town? So
I think that, I guess the first part of that question is what's the community's attitude towards economic development. I know that reading through the plan, the Envisioning 2037 plan, that there was a desire for walkability and more walkability in the community, and through trails and sidewalks and things like that. There's a desire to address issues in the town center, and I think there's concern about housing, about multifamily housing, and how that would roll out in the community. So those things are, I think that's sort of the attitude towards some of those planning for the future is, they want more walkability, and they don't want to be overrun by housing and by traffic. Traffic is a huge concern for the community. That being said, I always like to look at, I call it the levy pie, is there's commercial revenue and then there's residential revenue. And usually the residential revenue is the bigger piece of the pie. In Tewksbury, about 10 years ago, the commercial pie was 23%. Now it's 15%. So the commercial piece of the pie has gotten smaller. What that does, it drives up the taxes on the residential piece of the levy. That's not unique to Tewksbury. The same thing occurred when I was in Billerica, and it's something that I constantly wanted to combat, because the key to economic development is if the more quality commercial development you can get, the more stable your residential tax rate is going to be. So that's always been a focus of mine, and I'll give you one example that involves Tewksbury and Billerica, which is the Home Depot facility. That was a very complicated deal that required a lot of people to get together, whether it was myself, Richard Montori, the attorneys for Home Depot, the building commissioners for both Billerica and Tewksbury, and all of the regulatory agencies. We had to figure out how the tax rate was going to be split, how all those things were going to be done. In the end, something that was very complicated and difficult was worked out, and the end result was a huge increase in commercial revenue for both Billerica and Tewksbury, with very little impact on the infrastructure and on traffic. So there's personal property taxes that come out of that. There's real estate taxes that come out of that. So that was one example. In my personal style as a manager has always been that when an economic development comes to the town, when a developer or a prospect comes to town, I like to sit down with them myself and with my office and my team and find out what they want to do. Because I want them to know that the town is involved in the process. It isn't just the regulatory agencies. We want to know what they want to do. We want to know if it's good. You know, obviously, if it's something we don't want, we would discourage. But if it's something that's positive, we also want to make sure that we get the appropriate mitigation. A lot of times, boards are reluctant to get the appropriate mitigation that's necessary, maybe because it's it's a public forum. But what I do when I sit down with them is say, hey, look, we're going to need sidewalks here, and we're going to need this in order for this to work, because you're going to introduce this amount of burden on that neighborhood. So I like to do that, and I'm not sure how that happens now. I know that they have a very strong team here, so they may be doing that already, but I think my involvement in that would be something that I would insist on so that we can drive some of the economic development in town. Now, I think there are some discussions that could take place that would be less threatening and easy to build consensus around. Like in Billerica, we had 20% of our commercial base was advanced manufacturing. That is a big market for the future, is advanced manufacturing, and they're good jobs, and they're not all necessarily college jobs. So those are great quality jobs, they're good businesses, and they bring in tax revenue. So when Billerica suffers when the economic downturn, just like a financial portfolio, if you have diversity in your portfolio, you're going to survive better. So I think that we should look at things like that. Unfortunately, the R&D market right now is pretty dead, which is another reason advanced manufacturing is a good thing to look at. But I think that's something that I would do, is look at some of those niches in commercial property. Office park is not moving, and it probably won't for decades based on everything that's changed because of COVID. So we need to look at other ways to do that, and there are other ways to do it without it being the huge conflict that, say, multifamily housing is. So I would look at those things and try to introduce ways to promote quality economic development that would help keep the tax rate stable and help the town pay for the investments that you are constantly making into your infrastructure and your future.
Great. Thank you very much.
Ms. Wellman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Curran. It's a pleasure to have you here this evening and see you again. I'm familiar with your work, your body of work over the years. I was going to ask you about some kind of basics of financial management and your philosophy, but I feel you answered it with my colleague's question in detail, so thank you for that.
Okay.
And I kind of want to circle back with you on a few of those things, but that's maybe a later question. But what I did want to talk to you about, or have you talk about, is communications. And one thing that we know for sure from our residents through the search process is that they're hoping their next town manager will be a bigger part of the community. I also know that a number of years ago, there was a recognition for Firefighter of the Year. And I attended that recognition at the Kennedy Library for the Tewksbury firefighters. And you were there for the Billerica firefighters. And I think you were one of the only town managers at that award ceremony. And it spoke volumes, I think, for your style. So I'd like for you to talk a little bit about what your style of communications is, both internally with your staff and then externally through the community. And then tell us a little bit about how you would strive to create a relationship with the citizens and live into relationship with the community.
Okay. There's a lot in there to unpack.
There's a lot. I asked those questions.
If I forget, just remind me, but I'll try to address each one. I'll start with, I guess, the community itself. So communication with the community. I am a former mayor way back when. I can't believe it's almost 20 years now since that happened. But so naturally, I come by being involved in the community and being a presence in the community because that's kind of how I started. And I think it works, and it builds trust, it builds transparency with the community. So I think it's important to be out in the community and be a known entity in the community. A lot harder for a town manager than a mayor. What I found in Billerica was at the end of my tenure there, I was very well known. I had been there for a long time. But at the beginning, it's difficult because you aren't known, and it doesn't lend itself the way a mayor's position does. So what I do, what I did, and what I've done is the retail stuff that has been around for a million years, which is, getting out into the community. I march in the parades. I do the I go to the different events like a Yankee Doodle. The farmers market. I'd spent some time over there. I would go to, I'd speak at different things, Rotary, Greater Lowell Chamber of Commerce. If somebody wanted me to come out to something, I would do that. I have no problem doing that. Obviously, there's a life-work balance, but definitely if you look back at the way I've conducted myself, I am very involved in the community, going to the library functions, the wine tastings, and all those things that raise money, and I didn't drink any wine, but so I do all of those things. That's the retail end of it, and you have to do that, I believe. You have to be a part of the community. But then, as time has changed, as we all know, people communicate in much different ways than they did 20 years ago. So I ended up hiring Clancy Main. Jay knows, a friend of his, he ended up doing all of our social media. So I had done my MPA over at UMass Boston, and I wrote my capstone on social media and local government, municipal government. So what we found, if you go and we looked at the data after we've done it for so long, the people that are looking at the Facebook page, the Instagram, they're people from 18 to 50, 55. Once you get beyond that age, people that are looking at social media, they're not there anymore, but they do communicate via email. So what we did was we created a town manager's letter, and that list was about 4,500 people. And so we would send out basically a text that had the letter attached to it. And people got their information from that town manager's letter. So there's multiple layers of communication that you have to employ today in local government in order to be effective and in order to preserve and present an air of transparency and a reason to trust local government. And some of that has to do with social media. You want to make sure that it's interactive, and it doesn't have to be really complicated and controversial. We would do things like the annual budget book's coming out. Here's 6 pictures. Which one do you think should be on the front of the cover? That would prompt people to participate in the social media page, Instagram or Facebook, and then they come back, and they continue to come back. As long as that information's not stale, it becomes a very good tool to get information out to the public. So over the years, I've changed with the way we communicate with the public, because the public has changed and the mediums have all changed. And I've tried to keep up with all of those things, whether it's social media and then after COVID, we did info sessions, virtual information sessions, and then we did it for town meeting. So prior to town meeting, I would do an information session, and that was interactive. People would participate, and we would get a lot of the questions answered ahead of town meeting, and that's another way that we would connect with the public. So that is a lot of the different mediums that I would use to connect with the public. But internally with staff, communications with staff, I've been accused of being very accessible, almost too accessible to a point people walk in my office, and that's one way that I communicate with them. But what I've also tried to do is I have a team atmosphere in my place of work. I'm not someone, I encourage feedback, even negative feedback. I don't have a problem with that. Some people do, but I don't. And my former assistant, Kathy O'Day, will tell you, she'd come in and say, John, I don't think you should do that. And I go, well, why not? And she'd tell me why, and I'd usually modify my position. I might not go all her way, but I would change it to a better place, because she convinced me to do that. So it's a non-threatening environment where employees can feel like they can come in and they can tell you, look, we've been doing this for years, and you shouldn't do it that way. You should do it this way. So I try to encourage that type of feedback and dialogue with my staff, not just my senior staff, but with mid-level staff as well, even admin. I would give projects to admin to do different things, to launch a permitting program, and that would give them, empower them in a sense that they could, they feel better about what they're contributing to the team and to the community. So I think that is very important to do that, and that's what I've tried to do. In recognizing employees, it's great if you look at all the data. People like to be paid, but they also like to be recognized for good work. And so I've tried to do that with like you said, with the firefighter. I'd like to give credit to Chief Conway, who made sure I knew about it, and not all fire chiefs telling me what's going on, so that was good. And but it's important to recognize employees, because you're going to tell them when they think they're doing something wrong, so you need to tell them when they're doing something good as well. So a big part of my communication is making sure they felt like they were part of the team, feedback, giving them positive feedback when it was necessary or deserved, and also making them feel like they're contributing to the solution, and what they did mattered. That people aren't just going around with horse blinders on and not worrying about the impacts of decisions they make. If I do this, how's that going to affect the building department? So I think that worked very well. I think we had a very pleasant working environment for the people that worked with me, and that was the way I did it. Did I leave anything? Those are the two communication.
That's correct. You got it.
I did.
think you got it. You got it.
All right, good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, it's my turn, and you're talking about social media and stuff. My colleagues will confirm I'm the biggest expert on that.
You sure are, Mr.
I can't
Chairman.
even answer the phone. My question to you is, in the past, whether it be the mayor of Woburn or your time as town manager and Bill Ricker, is there any decision that you regret or you wish you could change?
That's a tough question. The decision that I regret and that I wish I could change?
Well, either you regret or you wish you didn't make the decision, or you want to change the decision.
Give me a minute to think about that one.
The stumper.
Yes.
There's certainly many things I regret. I'm just trying to have one pop into my mind that would be appropriate here. Let's see. So, I guess, I don't know if this is a good example, but so when because you all are here in Tewksbury and you're just a stone's throw away from Billerica, I probably don't have to tell you about the controversy of the town center in Billerica and how that's played out over the years. But when the first time that came around, and it passed town meeting, and then there was a movement by one individual to put it on the ballot and overturn it. And that hadn't happened in Billerica for many, many, many years. It's not necessarily my role to go out and lobby for something that ends up on the ballot, but it was the town, we didn't really do anything when that happened the first time around because, you know, that was a strategic decision that was made, I think, by the political players in town not to do anything. And at the time I thought it was right, but I later, like I've already referred to here today, I went on and did my capstone on social media and in municipal government. And the big reason that whole thing failed was there was a great social media campaign against it. It was very well done. In fact, Brian Dorrington did it, and it was effective. And but there was no response from the town. And so, if you're asking me one thing I regret, at that time, I think the town probably, whether it was me or somebody else, you should have thought about that a little bit more. Maybe there would at least some type of information should have been put out. So what's happened to me, I've evolved a little bit over the years, and one of the things that has really resonates with me is information. And we should have given out more information, because misinformation, as we know, is a huge problem today. And that's one of the key problems with social media, is that it's not that you're struggling to give them the information. You're struggling to give them information to combat the misinformation that they're getting from other sources. And so I regret that we didn't do more to put out more information at that time. I honestly don't think it would have changed anything, but strategically I think it was probably, it could have been done differently. And I learned from that, because the next time that happened, it didn't happen that way the next time. And that was there was a project for the PHR, Peggy Hannah Rizzo Complex. We were taking over the parks and trees. We were building a whole new recreation parks and trees department, and that was in the budget. And then that went on the ballot. We put out tons of information on that to make sure that people understood what they were voting on, and it didn't get overturned. So I learned my lesson from that first go around, which was you got to get the information out there. In today's world, you have to constantly be getting information out there, because transparency and trust are huge things in local government, that things you have to work on all the time to preserve it and maintain it.
Well, thank you for that answer. We're going to go around again, but we're going to start with me this time, so I get two in a row. What was my question? In the budget, every year, there's free cash. What is your opinion on free cash use?
Use for free cash? Free cash should, and it's right in the DOR regulations, should be used for one-time expenditures and not be used to sustain an operating budget. So I've typically used free cash for capital expenditures, and sometimes we use them, we do contributions to appropriations to the debt stabilization fund. We appropriate a portion of money to that each year, and but it cannot be used for anything that would be an ongoing expense each year. Now, like debt stabilization is a little different because you got a formula, all right, this is going to end at this time. This is what I need. I'm going to contribute this amount each year. So it's not something that is not manageable or unforeseen in the future, something you can manage. So you can make contributions from free cash for that purpose. I know that your town manager does regularly. In fact, you just did one in this town meeting, a very big appropriation to your stabilization fund. So the credit rating agencies look at stabilization funds, and they look at them all the same way. They're all just big pots of money. They don't care what you call it. They're just glad you have it. So using free cash for that purpose, I think, is a good thing. It's important that free cash not be, there's a window, and then it's a percentage of the budget. It can't be, I think it's 3 to 5% of the total budget. It should come in around that number. So each year when I do my budget presentation, I would show where the free cash was, how that compared to the total budget, which is all your appropriations, not just your operating budget. And then show that we are in the margin of error we should be, because a lot of people are like, well, that money should go back to the taxpayer because that money is, you overcharged us. And it's just like anything, you can't say we're going to charge you exactly to the penny because nobody knows exactly what that penny is going to be. So you have to leave a margin of error, and that's why the DOR says 3 to 5% is the reason. If you're putting in a margin of error of 15, 20%, well then yeah, you're overcharging the taxpayer. But if you're in that window of 3 to 5%, it's reasonable. And that money that's left over, if you have it, use it for the right purpose to improve the community. That makes sense. But you don't want to be in the other direction, which is if you're 5% under what you appropriated, then you're in the red. And that's why the number has to be at least, it has to be 5%, because just like polling, it's plus or minus. Once you get past that 5%, you're in the safe zone. So, I think there's a logic to free cash and why it's calculated the way it is and why you're supposed to, end up where you are. But it's important that free cash only be used for one-time expenditures and possibly for stabilization and in putting money away.
All right, thank you for that. Ms. Wellman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. In some communities, there is a big divide between the school department, school side finances, and municipal finances. So can you talk a little bit about your experience working with your school departments and how you may have supported the roles of the school committees that you've served with? And then talk a little bit about if you've played a role with the negotiation with the local teachers union.
Okay, so I'll go from the last thing back to the beginning. But as far as contract negotiation goes, I would have a sit down with the superintendent, and we would talk about where I was, what COLAs I was looking at, and then, he would take those parameters and go away and use that at the bargaining table. And if he thought that there was something that was, might be a little bit, out of that realm, he would call me and we would talk about it. And, I've never said to him, to the superintendent, I don't think you should, no, I don't think you should do that. I don't want to be sitting at the table per se. I'd rather just look at the big numbers. I'm not an educator, so I'm not going to go at a bargaining table. It isn't just money. It's all about all different things that I really don't have the qualifications to talk about. So I'm not going to sit at the table with the union, but I am going to be in the background saying, look, you can't give them 7, 7, and 7 because we're giving 2, 2, and 2. So there's that kind of discussion, but beyond that, I'm not going to get into the minutiae of negotiating a school contract. Outside of the contracts and my relationship with the school department, I am a very huge proponent of education. As you can probably tell by my background, I've been involved in the construction of 3 high schools and probably 5 elementary schools between Woburn and Billerica. And so I'm a very big proponent of education. A good educational system in a community makes it a healthy community. You want young families to come to your community because you don't want everybody in the community to be one segment. You want some diversity in your community. So a big part of that is education, is making sure that you have a good educational system. So I would sit down with my superintendent, Bill Ricca. One good thing about Bill Ricca that I can't take credit for is that superintendent's office is in the same building. It's in Town Hall. So we were literally right down the hall from each other. And in spite of him being a Buffalo Bills fan, we had a very good relationship. But part of that, the reason we had a good relationship is the things that I keep bringing up: transparency and trust, right? And so, there is, as you mentioned, I think this is what you're probably alluding to, there's sometimes a tendency from school departments to try to keep a veil over what's going on because they don't want to lose anything. And that wasn't the case in Billerica because there wasn't a fear that we were going to take things away. If they needed money for capital, we made it available. So we would talk about the budget, he would tell me what he needed, and I would tell him, look, this is what we can bear, and we would work that out. Now, what's important to me, it has been throughout my whole career, is that the budget for the school department is mutually agreed upon by the town and the school long before you get to town meeting, because the last thing you want, and to the city council in the case of the city, but the last thing you want is there to be a fight at town meeting about the number for the school budget. That doesn't help anybody. So I always made sure that we worked that out, and that we knew that wasn't going to be an issue on town meeting floor. And then the other piece that I mentioned was capital, and capital, making sure that they got their piece of the pie, the free cash. And I noticed that in Tewksbury they do what they used to do in Billerica, which is they show the breakdown of each new piece of revenue and how much of that is going to the schools and how much of that is going to the town. I got away from that emphasis because it really shouldn't be about that. It's like you're pushing the pennies this way and that way. It should be about, what do you need this year? You might need less this year. And there were cases when that was the case in Billerica. They didn't need as much as they did the previous year. But then the following year, they needed more. And so we would work that way as opposed to, just giving you a number that you think you deserve. It'd be a number based on need. And the relationship I had with the superintendent was very good because, there was some trust, and then he understood that, we were going to support education in Billerica from the town side. And I'll give you one little story that kind of illustrates that. I talked about it with the screening committee. We had a new superintendent, she's still there now, and she came in, and it was difficult because when she first came in, they were underwater with their budget. To her credit, she told me right away, she told me in September. And we started looking into it. She started looking into it on her end. And unfortunately for her, all the institutional knowledge in the school department went out the window because they all left. They all left at around the same time. So it was very difficult for them to figure out what was going on. So I recommended, I said, why don't we bring an auditing company in and look at this stuff and see if we can find out what's going on. She was naturally resistant to that because why wouldn't she be? I just got here. I don't want to have people combing through the books. But after, talking to her and developing a relationship with her, she realized that we all had the same goals. And she, to her credit, she said, all right, let's do that. And so we brought somebody in. It was a mutually agreed upon thing. We brought a company in, and they went through the books, found what the issues were, and to a point where we never had to make an appropriation at town meeting to balance the books before the end of the school year. But that's because there was a relationship between me and the new superintendent that allowed us to find the problem and fix it without creating a huge hornet's nest within the community. And that's the way I like to operate. And when you develop those relationships, you can operate that way because there's a level of trust.
Thank you.
Mr. Addy. Thank you. How would you define a successful relationship between the town manager and the select board?
Okay, so that is a great question, and a lot of people would define that differently depending on who you are, right? But my definition of that is, so it depends, like, so you have different boards, right? If you have a board that's a solid majority board, is much easier than you have a board that's fractured. If it's a fractured board, it's difficult to maintain the relationship because one side might be upset because you did one thing and then the other side might be upset. So what I've tried to do over the years is you have to treat everybody the same. Every select board member has to be treated the same, afforded all the same courtesies, regardless of, where they are, what side of the issue they're on, if I had a disagreement with a select board member a week ago, I can't take it out on them the following week. You have to treat them with the respect that their position deserves. They're the policymakers of the town, they're the executives of the town, and when they call you up and they need some information and they want some help, you just help them get that information. So there was someone before me in Billerica that used to go to lunch with certain selectmen and not with other selectmen. He didn't last too long because he treated them differently. And so that's the first thing, is you have to treat everybody the same. You have to establish expectations. So what does the board expect from me? And what do I expect from the board? And so you have to define what those are. And there's probably another question that is going to address this, but if what I like to do is meet with each board member when I come on and find out what makes you tick, what your goals are, what you want to do, and then I kind of cobble that information together. And Jay, your cybersecurity is a big thing in your wheelhouse, and yours might be road work as the DOT, and so you have all these different needs, and so I would find out what makes you guys tick, what drives you, and then when we get to a point where you want to talk about goals for the community and the vision for the community, I would put all those things together in a document that shows things that would be developed through consensus, right? You all probably have similar views on a lot of things. Those are consensus matters that are easily incorporated into a goals document. Then there are things that might have some controversy or some conflict around them, but they might be able to be modified and move forward by the board. So I would put those into a different category, take that document and bring it to the board as a working session, and try to develop goals and a vision for the community moving forward. But to answer your ultimate question is, what is a successful relationship? A successful relationship with the board is that you as board members expect me to act in a certain way, and that that I will do that. That I'm not going to surprise you by doing certain things. That I'm going to provide you with information, in keeping you informed. I remember that one of the issues that the boards always have is like, I want to know about everything. So I would try to, if there was a fire in the community, I would send out a text to every member of the community, every member of the board, let them know that there was a fire, because you're going to find out about it when you walk into the store and somebody says, "Oh, did you hear about that fire?" and you didn't know about it. You don't want to not know about it. So again, it comes back to information and transparency. As much information as I can provide to the board, I will do. And I think that helps to establish a successful and strong relationship with the board. And those difficult times when there's conflict with the board in my office, because maybe I tell the board, well, I don't think you can do that because it's, there are issues with X, Y, and Z, at least you will expect, you won't be surprised that I will communicate information that you might not want to hear, but but it's not something I'm going to hold on to because you don't want to hear it. So you're going to get the information from me one way or the other, but hopefully it's going to be in a timely fashion so that you can make educated decisions on modifications in your decision-making process. Because that's one of the biggest complaints that a select board member would have would be, well, I wish I knew about that earlier, or, that would have helped me make that decision. So that's a constant battle to try to keep up with everything that the board wants to know, but it is a process that I think is important to maintaining a good relationship with the board.
Great. Thank you very much.
Mr. Kratman?
All right, I want to discuss your experience working with the state delegation and working with state agencies and other agencies. We have a lot of needs in infrastructure and projects that will come forward. And so I just want to have you discuss that. And then I want to throw in a second question because I asked the last candidate. We have a town assistant manager that's going to be retiring next year. And how would you go about, if you received this position, how would you go about finding and selecting somebody as well?
Okay, I'll start with the first one, right out of your wheelhouse, obviously. Dealing with state agencies is something I'm very familiar with. DOT, District 4, Paul Stedman called you on numerous occasions, and you've always been very helpful. That project on 3A, we worked with them for 2 years, and they did incorporate some sidewalks in that project. But that was a constant. I had to stay on top of that. I had to be diligent and stay and stay on top of it because there were problems down the street. You're the only one, Mark. You're probably the only one that's going to know this. But when 3A went down to Burlington, the whole project got held up because Burlington had all sorts of issues with it. Worked out great for us because it allowed us to lobby for our sidewalks on the Billerica side. So I'm very familiar with doing that. I'll give you a couple of different examples of me working with state agencies. One of the ones I'm most proud of, and the one that people know the least about, would be the Middlesex Turnpike project. It's a $70 million project that was on the books since for 30 years. Bob Mercier was working on it when he was the town manager of Billerica, and so it went up through Burlington, Bedford, and Billerica, and the last piece was Billerica. And because the first two pieces were in the MAPC district, the agreement was that the project would be paid for through the MAPC tip, which is much bigger than the NIMCOG tip.
Yeah.
So it was constantly in danger of being kicked off the tip because, understandably, nobody in the MAPC wanted to pay for a project in NIMCOG's district. So I would have to try to keep it on the tip, and one of the crucial times was they kicked it off, and because I worked in Woburn and I've been in all these places. Marty Walsh was still around. I guess I'm dating myself now, but he had a delegate on the board. Paul Regan was over on that. He was the advisory board chair. So I called all those people, Rob Dolan, and I called all those people, and I lobbied to keep that project on the tip, and we were successful. And that project is being completed right now. Taking a lot longer than we'd hoped, but it's getting done. And it wouldn't have been able to get done if you didn't have that level of experience and in relationships to be able to push something forward by all rights. Most of those people in the MAPC didn't want in the first place. Similarly, like when we got MassWorks grant on Boston Road for $2.3 million, that I used leverage for the Middlesex House of Correction. When the House of Correction was being expanded, I really pushed and said, well, we really could use a MassWorks grant. I worked with the governor's office to push that forward. And then most recently with Laurie Trahan and the $1.5 million they appropriated for the town center and got an earmark through the federal government. So that was all stuff that was, stuff that I worked on in the background to get pushed forward, that you need to have these relationships and understand the dynamics of these different federal and state organizations in order to push those things forward. So, and so I think I bring that to the table. And did I get the one?
Yeah, the other thing was we have an assistant town manager that may be retiring next year.
So I'm actually kind of thankful that Steve is going to stay on for a year, because that's great for me if I get the job, because I can tap into his institutional knowledge for a year. And he's been around for a while. He's very well respected. So I'm very, happy that he's going to be here for at least a year. In terms of the assistant's position, I'll let time roll up, but I would, start advertising that position before Steve leaves. But I probably want to get somebody in that role. Obviously, the people that are in that role, a lot of them want to move on. So, it's sort of a mentoring role, which I found with my assistants. So I would look at hiring somebody that you could develop and they could grow in that position. As far as it being, because it's an assistant town manager, it's the appointment of the town manager. I'm not sure if you're asking me if there should be a committee to do that. I probably would not do that in that scenario, whereas you would for, say maybe a library director or something. So I would definitely look at hiring somebody that could grow in that role, someone who wants to learn, and someone who's got a lot of energy that can do that. And they also have to have some political acumen to be in that role. I've found that in the two assistants that I've had, they both were very good with that, and you need that because that allows me to be able to know that they can handle things independently, but they need to know what the roles are and how to handle them so they can act independently, but also not cross any lines that shouldn't be crossed.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Mackey.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So my second question here is going to be, I don't know how much staff you have. Obviously, being next door, I'm pretty familiar with what you've been doing over in Billerica, but Tewksbury runs a very lean operation, and I don't know if Billerica also runs a similarly lean operation as far as staff goes. So I'd be interested to hear kind of how much staff you have, and if you think that differs from what we have in Tewksbury, and if it does differ, do you think that will be an issue for you?
So it does a little bit, but not that much. I was looking at the Lexington position, and they have a ton of staff in Lexington. There's a significant difference over there than there is here, but as opposed to Billerica and Tewksbury. So we have an assistant town manager. You have an assistant town manager that also performs in another role, but we had a community development director. Billerica was a little bit bigger, so so there is a little bit more staff. But I would think that the differences that are key or significant are those roles. Like Billerica did have a community development director, and they did have 2 planners on staff. And I thought that was helpful, and I think. I don't know how many planners you have on staff here. You have obviously Steve Sadwick, and then you have he has staff too. But so it's not all that much different. It's a little different because I think the assistant's role has been kind of crunched into that role too. But I got to tell you, I worked in Maine for 4 years, and that was a small community. It was 10,000 people. And I had to do everything in that place, right down to setting the tax rate. And so I'm not a stranger to having to pick up and do the grunt work. Love spreadsheets. Come by that honestly. I was a mutual funds accountant for 10 years prior to getting into public life. And I did spreadsheets, and I just... I'm good at it. I like finance, but the best part about finance is the impact it has on the people behind it. You don't get that with mutual funds. So I definitely don't have a problem if there's some role that Richard's doing now that I didn't do. There's things I've done in the past and could do in the future. I've done just about everything. Having gone through Maine and even Woburn. Woburn is very, in elected positions, very difficult to get professional staff because A, they don't want to stay around because they're elected positions, and B, the city council usually doesn't want to give it to them. So they're bare bones staffs as well. So I'm no stranger to that, but I wouldn't say that Tewksbury is bare bones. I'd say that Billerica maybe had a little bit more staff, but I don't think it's significant.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't say bare bones, but lean, right?
Yeah.
Lots of
Yeah.
dual hatting, lots of very effective individuals, so I appreciate the answer.
But what I had to your credit is that you do have a very good and competent staff, so.
Absolutely. All right, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, thank you. You survived the hour and 10 minutes.
All right.
I want to thank you for having an interest in Tewksbury. I'm not sure we're going to make a decision tonight. We probably won't, but we are having a meeting on Tuesday to discuss what we had discussed tonight. With that being said, I will refer you to John,
Okay.
for Community Paradigm, and we'll keep him informed. And again, thank you so much for your interest in Tewksbury, and you had a great presentation.
All right, thank you for the opportunity. I enjoyed it, and I hope to hear from you again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Before we do anything else, I think we should cover this. This is T&O Corporation DBA Brothers Sports Bar and Grill, 553 Main Street. One-day change of hours on a liquor license.
Thank you, John.
Thank you, John.
Thank you, John.
Thank you.
How you doing?
How are
Can
you?
you introduce yourself, name and address for the record?
I'm Kayla O'Donnell. I'm representing Brothers Sports Bar and Grill at 553 Main Street in Tewksbury.
Okay, what are we doing here?
So I am just looking to extend our liquor license by 1 hour on the date of October 20th. There's an early Patriots game.
Okay, board members, any questions?
You want to end the evening later?
No, I want to start it an hour earlier.
Okay. So what time will it start?
10 in the morning.
Sorry. Okay. That's all.
Okay. Mr. Ryder, any questions?
No, pretty straightforward.
No, I think we received some documentation that the state sent us about allowing additional early hours on that, so it falls into our guidelines, so I don't really have any questions on that.
Mr. Mackey?
No questions, strongly support. Glad to see that you guys were able to do this for the Pats game.
Thank you.
Okay, and the chair has no questions. What is the pleasure of the board?
Mr. Chairman, I'd make a motion to approve the 1 hour extension on the date of Saturday, October 20th, with the hours being from 10 a.m. to 1 a.m.
Okay, a motion made by Mr.
Second.
Mackey. Second by Mr. Ryder. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And chair votes aye as well. Thank you. Good
Thank
luck.
you, guys.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Okay. Would you like to come up again? And in regards to the interviews, what is the pleasure of the board? I mean, I've told you this at the beginning, that we have some options. We can defer it to the meeting on the 15th. We can request a second interview from either one of them. We can send it back to the search committee, or we can vote right now. What is the pleasure of the board?
Well, Mr. Chairman, I was hoping to see 3 candidates tonight. Well, we got 2, but they were 2 very capable candidates. I would personally like to digest the information that I received tonight. Both of them submitted a lot of really good information. I wanted to sit back. You get something for an hour, and I took a lot of notes, and I want to go back and really think about what's best for this town. I thought they both did a wonderful job. And like I said, before making a decision, I want to look at my notes and kind of go back and forth and say, give it a second thought before making a decision all in one night. My position.
I can understand that. Mr. Mackey, any comments?
Yeah, actually very similar to Mr. Crabbins. I was disheartened in the 11th hour withdrawal. It happens. I understand that. Was looking forward to seeing 3 candidates, but I believe we got 2 very capable candidates. I believe I could make a decision tonight if that were the board's desire, but I would not be opposed to some time to digest.
Ms. Wellman?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to compliment the search committee and the work of Community Paradigm, Mr. Petrin, and your office. I thought we had 3 great candidates to look at. Candidates drop out all the time in these things, and so that's not it was a surprise, but not, it happens, not unexpected at all. I thought we had two excellent candidates tonight. I think this board asked you to make the decision difficult. We wanted to see the excellent candidates. I think that that was achieved. So we have two excellent candidates who presented themselves both well. I am comfortable making a decision this evening, but I certainly defer to the pleasure of the board.
Mr. Ryder.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Again, I'll echo the rest of my fellow board members. Great candidates. Thank you again. I know combing through 25, bringing it down to 7 in for an interview. Thank you. I will agree with some of the members. I could make a decision tonight, but I will follow the rest of the board in their decision. But again, two candidates, two great interviews, so thank you again.
Okay, I agree with my colleagues. I could make the decision myself tonight, but I do agree that there was a lot of information to swallow tonight. And we also have a video, so we can go back through the video and see. So I am going to make a suggestion that we defer it to the meeting on the 15th.
I'll second that motion, if that's a motion in place.
Okay, I'll make
the motion that we defer it to our next meeting.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion made by Mr. Kratman and seconded by Mr. Ryder to defer our decision.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman, but you're posted for the 16th.
It's the 16th?
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
it's Wednesday the 16th.
It's Wednesday
I just wanted to clarify.
I was just pulling that up right now.
Thank you, Mr.
It's
Petron.
Wednesday
I'm like,
this, I just did the same thing. I'm like, all right, I know I
have a
have
meeting on the
something. I already
15th,
have
yeah.
something on the 15th.
I'm
and
saying 7 plus 9 is 60, so it wasn't working, but anyways.
yes, we have something.
it's already on my schedule.
I mean, you could repost for Tuesday.
No,
I know.
no, I already have it.
Wednesday is good.
I think it's
yeah.
already
Don't
posted.
do another Tuesday.
No.
Yeah.
I think it's already posted.
It is.
So, Mr. Kratman made the motion, Mr. Ryder seconded the motion to defer to the meeting on the 16th of October.
Yes. Perfect.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye as well, that's unanimous. I don't know if you're going to attend on the 16th?
Yes, I'll be here. Again, I'm
You'll be more than
here in
welcome
case
to.
you have questions and follow up with the candidates, of course. So I'll let the two candidates know this evening as to your decision and the status, and that they can hang until next Wednesday night.
Mr. Chairman, before we, I know this question is going to come up, so that's why I figured I'd ask while we have you here. Charter calls for 3 candidates.
Correct.
So that's, I want to make that very clear to the residents. I'm sure we may get some questions, why didn't you bring in one of the other things? So I just want to address that with you while we're here. We had 2 quality candidates. They're, this is what was recommended by our committee to us. We had somebody drop out at the last minute. We could look for additional candidates, but I don't think the board was looking for that. So I just want to make it clear in case somebody does ask that in the near future that, we posted, we expected 3. We had 3 sent to us by our committee. And I
The
just
committee
wanted to
did submit 3 names, which is what the charter required.
Yeah.
So 3 names were submitted to the board, and we were prepared, for 3
Yeah.
interviews this evening, but 1 didn't.
Yeah, but
withdraw.
I just know the residents, why didn't we have a 4th one? And if the 3rd one dropped out or something like that, it's because of our charter for what it is. So I just want to clarify, so we can answer that in public session, why that's there, instead of getting that question later on.
Yep, absolutely.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I would also like to ask Mr. Petron a question.
I'll go right ahead.
Thank you, ma'am. So once we make our selection, and then we will begin drafting or negotiating a contract.
Correct.
Can you tell the board a little bit about that process?
Yes, so when you make your decision will be to appoint pending a successful contract negotiation, and further background check if you wish, but, we did provide, reference and background checks on all 3 candidates, which you received. So it'll be subject to contract negotiation. What we recommend is that you be ready next Wednesday night to determine how you wish to proceed with that. So if it's, one member of the board or two members of the board going to take lead to negotiate, with the candidate you select, you should be prepared to address that, next Wednesday night so that you're ready to move forward. The last thing you want to do is wait.
Right.
But you should be prepared to move forward to determine what the candidate is seeking and what your package is approximately, so to have that negotiation.
So is it efficacious to have a conversation now about what that package looks like and
Many
remand
boards
it
will
maybe
prior
to council?
to
Yep.
or right after the appointment. If you wish to add an executive session to, next week's meeting, you can certainly do so. I know you're not posted for one tonight, but you could
But
change.
there's still time.
But there's still time for next Wednesday night. If you have not already, developed that package. If not, whoever you designate to negotiate with, because parameters were set, within the posting, you can
right.
come back to an executive session afterwards. So again, that's, within your purview as to which way you think you should go with that.
Thank you very much.
But you should designate a member or two from your board to be ready to meet with your candidate right after.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Based on that information, Mr. Chairman, I would request that we add an executive session to our October 16 meeting.
Second.
All right. We're going to have it at the end.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, I have a motion to add executive session to our meeting on the 16th. I have a motion made by Ms. Wellman, seconded by Mr. Wright. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And chair votes aye as well. That's all we have? I have one more thing, and that is on the 15th.
16th.
The 16th, I'm sorry. I don't know why I keep saying the 15th. The person who submitted the application for the Trahan RFP that didn't show up that night.
Correct.
Well, they thought he was being ghosted by us, and we thought we were being ghosted by him, and finally they got together, and he'd like to sit down and do his presentation. I do not think it will hurt.
Wasn't a vote already made?
The vote was made to move forward with the RFP that we had from the Chelmsford, but we don't have any contractual agreement with that yet. They're still drawing up what they're going to do. But my feeling is I don't think it would be harmful to at least listen to what they have to say.
I concur. I would like to hear the second option, and I believe the vote was to enable Mr. Montori to have discussions around
Correct.
specifics. So.
Mr. Kratman?
Yeah, I mean,
Not gonna happen.
we're always open to options, so we have no contract signed in, and to listen to a second opinion on something, why? Even if something doesn't work there, it may work someplace else, we never know. So,
I just want to gauge, because we'll have that on our agenda
Yep.
for the 16th.
Yep.
16.
With that being said,
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
we have a motion to adjourn by Ms. Wellman, seconded by Mr. Mackey. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye as well. Good night, Tewksbury.
Good night.